Webinar TPE 101. We'll jump right in with our introductions. I'll introduce myself. I'm Arian Mickles, and I actually serve as chair of the Employer Development Subcommittee. This is my second year on this committee, and I currently also serve as the Associate Director of Student Life at Loyola University, Maryland, specifically for recruitment and staff development. And I will let my colleague Tim go ahead and introduce himself.
Good morning, everyone. I am Tim Layson, Dr. Tim Layson, as of a couple of months ago, super exciting. I'm a member of the Employer Development team for our TPE Planning Committee, and this is my first year on the committee, and I currently serve as Associate Director of Residence Life at Santa Clara University in California.
Thank you. And then we also want to introduce Kirsten Fox, who serves as the director of TPE. And so I will give her some time to also just quickly introduce herself and share more of her role.
Good morning or afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are located. And welcome to our first Employer Development Live of this TPE year. So I am Kirsten Fox. I am the director of TPE, and this will be my second TPE in this role. Prior to coming to TPE, which is a partnership between ACU Hawaii and NASPA, I worked in the career services world for a few years and have been in student affairs for about 20 years, so have been an employer at multiple institutions in multiple functional areas over time, so know what it's like to be an employer as well going through TPE. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Kirsten. All right, so for this first session, we will actually be talking about primarily a quick synopsis of what TPE is and preparing you to register and some things that you should start thinking about in preparation for registering for TPE, but also in preparing to attend TPE. First things first, it would be good to know when actually TPE or the placement exchange on-site or in-person session is taking place. This year will be in Austin, Texas, from March 25th through March 28th.
All right, so just to kind of give everyone some data, because we all love data. So this information was taken from our most recent on-site in Los Angeles, California. So just to kind of give some larger overview information. So 90% of employers, and so we're looking specifically at employer data based on a survey that was taken. 98% of employers would recommend TPE to their colleagues for candidate recruitment and selection. So these are employers who would recommend going to the TPE onsite to another colleague or another institution in order to meet whatever recruitment or selection goals that they have for the year. One of the great things about TPE is that there's a pretty big diversity of candidates that come from all different backgrounds and all different types of student affairs and counseling-based programs. And so 90% of our employers from last year appreciated the diversity of candidates who came from different institutions and were able to bring new ideas and some different ideas. And just kind of encapsulate what one employer said, the strength of TPE continues to be the variety of candidates attracted to going there. And then obviously TPE, we in the last decade or so have continued to refine our process and look at the feedback and really try to incorporate things that both of our candidates and employers give to us as feedback. So to give some other stats, 95% of employers identified candidates to pursue after the TPE onsite. So when a candidate had successfully completed the onsite experience, employers were able to identify candidates to move on to their next step of their process. A lot of our employers are really satisfied with the work that we did as an employer development team in the last year to meet their needs. And that even though TPE geographically changes location every year, last year's employer said 90%, 97% indicated that they would attend TPE Onsite in the next year. And that 89% of our employers were satisfied with the overall TPE experience. And you can see the quotes that are there. And, one of the great things about this experience is that, when we talk about the diversity of candidates, we're not just talking about, the types of programs that they come to, but we're also talking about racial and ethnic backgrounds and gender expression and, some of those other things where our employers bring their personal attributes into the workspace. Because they're trying to find a fit for themselves as well as the employer's trying to find a fit within their institution. And so I think it's great to share this data with a lot of folks because sometimes we don't get to see what it looks like from an overall perspective. And as an employer development team, we only want to continue to better serve our colleagues who are coming into this experience. And so these are some great data points that we wanted to make sure we shared, and just like the amazing work that all of our employers and our candidates put into making the experience what it is every single year, because it's about advancing our profession and not just recruiting folks for the next positional opening.
Thanks, Tim. So one major thing we really want to talk about today is registration and what that looks like, being that our on-site registration opens tomorrow at noon Eastern time. So some important dates to really mark on your calendars now is that, of course, that registration opens tomorrow. We will have a virtual TPE experience specifically for our California schools that aren't able to actually go to Texas just because of where it's located this year. That information is on our website. Also, that registration will open on November 1st, and we will talk a little bit more about it as we get into registration and what that looks like. Please note that our early bird registration ends on January 10th, 2020. Registration will still continue after that, but the early bird registration ends on January 10th. You'll want to finalize your table orders, which we'll talk a little bit more about shortly, on January 12th, 2020. You can start adding your interview teams by January 20th, 2020. And then interview scheduling, while you register tomorrow, interview scheduling will not open until February 1st, 2020. And then any interview hall services, orders, deadlines that you need need to be made by February 21st, 2020. And we will send this PowerPoint out so that you also have all those dates, but they are also listed on our website. So when looking at our general registration, this is just an overview. It's also on our website of what is included in your employer registration package. So when you register, whether early bird, regular, your packet will include one standard interview table, one standard interview job posting credit, and then access to the interview hall for your entire table. So when you're registering, you will have one individual that you will market as your interview team lead. Later on in the process, when you add your interview team members, you'll need to also make sure you include the person who signed you all up or registered you all, if they will also be in attendance as an interviewer. And then there are some options for you to be able to upgrade your registration package. So you can upgrade to a premium event job post. And the difference between the standard event job post and the premium interview post, we'll talk about in a few moments. As well as the difference between a premium and a standard interview booth. But these are just some pieces of how you can upgrade your registration package. And then, as I talked about a little bit ago, we will have a virtual option for California institutions that are restricted funds to travel to Texas, but would still like to recruit through TPE and take advantage of those on-site candidates. And what this registration encompasses is you'll get virtual private interview table in our virtual interview room, a standard interview job post credit, and then you'll have a designated virtual video conference interview line to on-site candidates who are in Austin. And then any additional necessary technology that may be needed. So any of that on-site hardwired internet access or computers or headphones for our candidates.
Okay, so if you have never been to TPE before, because we don't want to assume that everyone's been before, you might be asking, like, what is the difference between a standard interview table versus a premium booth? So standard interview tables, and you can see what the dimensions are. Standard interview tables are clustered within an open area of the main floor of the TPE Onsite area. So you would be in an open area with other institutions. So, for example, an institution I worked at, we had 6 tables. So we would share we would have our 6 tables, but then the set of tables next to us could be a different institution. So depending on how your institution is going to be recruiting, if you wanted to do the standard interview table option, that's what it kind of looks like. And you can see the picture that is off to my right hand side over here of what it looks like. So when you come to TPE, the table is it's open. Depending on the number of tables that you have open. So institutions would need to provide your own table skirts, tablecloths, and different things like that. And we will also float around if you need some assistance. But yeah, just as a heads up, whether you're doing a standard interview table or a premium booth table, you just need to make sure that you're providing your own tablecloths and different things like that. So versus a premium interview booth. So premium interview booths are a little bit more intimate. And so really what it is that you have a booth area that's encapsulated with 4 curtain walls. And so it'll be one table within that area. So depending on your institution, you might buy multiple private booth tables or just have one private booth tables. And it really depends on what you're looking for in terms of your interview experience. If you know that you and your team would like to do more individualized or more private type of interview settings, and you may be looking at the premium interview booth, might be a great option. But if you're looking at just being part of the overall area, then a standard interview table might be for you. There's really no wrong way to go with a standard interview table or private interview booth, as in my own experience. Like I've worked at institutions where I've done one of each, and at the end of the day, it's just about interviewing the candidate. And so for me, it's just important that we are able to get our message across and find out like what we know about them and what they can find out about us. And so the dimensions for the premium interview booth table are a little bit bigger. And like I said, there's draping around it. So you have semi-private interviewing. So you get the 1 6-foot table and then another 4-foot table on the back side of it, along with 3 folding chairs. So like I said, anything that you want to do to decorate your tables or anything like that, you'll want to make sure that you're bringing along with you. And we can certainly talk about like how to decorate your tables either today if you have that as a question, or at another webinar. But these are just some of the differences, and there is a price difference between the two type of interview tables, as Arian had shown in the other slides. And so that'll be something that you or your institution will also take into account when deciding on as to which type of interview setup you'd like to arrange for. So when we look at the standard on-site job post credit, so like Arian said, when you are registering your teams, you'll be getting a certain number of job posting credits as part of it, and then you can upgrade your packages to see how candidates can review your job description. So with our credits, it's usually when candidates are registered, they can see the job sites once they've registered, or your job descriptions once they've registered as a candidate. But if you wanted to upgrade to the premium on-site job credit, this will allow candidates to see your different position postings, whether they are attending the on-site event or not. And so that's another decision that you and your institution will also have to navigate through as to see which type of job credit posting you'd like to see. A lot of employers do a mix of both, depending on the number of positions that they have open or the number of positions that they are interviewing for. So depending on what you all are trying to look for, that will be something for another point of decision making. And then another great opportunity, and is also dependent every year on space, is the reception hours or the reception events. And so you can, and I know this information has the LA spaces on it, but once we populate our Austin information for recruitment receptions, your institution can also look at that as another way to gauge candidates outside of the formal interviewing spaces. And so having worked at institutions that have done the recruitment receptions, it's a great opportunity for you and your team to be in a little bit more of a relaxed setting, and then also meet candidates, like I said, outside of the normal formal interview spaces. And so, yeah, all the spaces, all of our recruitment receptions always take place within a convention center or somewhere close to it. And then there's also pricing that will come with that. And it also depend on the day that your institution wants to take the recruitment reception. So depending on the type of interview setup that you're trying to do, and I said the number of candidates you're trying to recruit, this is also another great option that you could also pursue. And so really what we try to do for employers is we really try to give you all of the best options and package the ones that will be most effective based on what you're looking for from your institution. And so we are more than happy to sit down and kind of talk through that after this, or if you have questions about it. But we want to make sure that you all have all the information for everything we can do for you on site when you come to Austin this year.
Okay. And so just mentioned registration. We do also want to share with who we are as the employer development team. We really are meant to be a kind of concierge team for our employers. As you're thinking about, do you want to attend TPE? If you already decided that you want to attend, so we are here for you before, during, and after the on-site placement exchange event. But we also want to share some things that we're doing, as well as what other committees underneath the TPE at large planning committee is doing. So we really want you to look out for more sessions from us specifically, just like the one we're doing today, on various topics. So on the right side of your screen, you'll be able to see some of the other topics that we plan to cover. We know when you all registered, you had different questions, and a lot of those questions will fall under these varying sessions. So we'll talk about what to do when candidates ghost, meaning that candidates may talk to you all the way up until TPE and then never show up. So what to do in those instances, how to pack and ship different materials to TPE. Do you or don't you have thank you notes or accept thank you notes? Like, we will have continuing conversations about every aspect of TPE coming up. We also will be offering one-on-one sessions with the employer development team. So if you yourself as an individual or your recruitment team would like to just have a kind of one-on-one conversation with Tim and I and your team to really dive a little deeper into how to prepare for TPE, questions that you have for TPE, we will also be setting those sessions up. We'll be hosting various employer orientations as it gets closer to on-site, as well as during the on-site TPE event. Once registration begins, we'll start sending out periodic emails to any employers that are registered. And from the entire committee, we'll start having how-to guides and how-to videos to do some of our different pieces related to TPE. So how to start scheduling your candidates. We will have both documented how-to guides that you'll receive in your emails and will be posted on our social media, and then also some videos to really showcase how to do each of those things. And then thinking about a suggested, also in each of our monthly webinars, we will do a suggested to-do list as it's coming up to TPE, but also what you should be doing and thinking about now. So for October, you should be thinking about registering, being that registration opens tomorrow. Do you want to attend the on-site event? We're hoping that you want to attend the on-site event, so you should register. Then you'll need to post your job descriptions to the TPE site. We suggest that when you are posting your job descriptions, you also include how to apply, whether that is via them sending their resume and cover letter to a certain person, whether it's going to your HR site, making sure that that is included in your posting, as well as who is your contact person. Then you want to start thinking about your recruitment team. How many individuals do you want to bring on site? Will it be one? Will it be more than one? And then who will those individuals be? And thinking about, we will have a session on the scope of who is included in your interview team, but really start having the conversation of how many individuals do we want on our team, what types of individuals and what positions do we want on the team, and who can actually go to the event with us. And then start thinking about your interview scheduling format. Are you gonna do, we have different institutions that some do all of their first and second rounds on site. Other schools do their first rounds via Skype and phone calls before they get to TPE, so they can maximize their time on site and do all of their interviews just with second rounds. And then some institutions will do all of their first rounds at TPE and then do their second rounds post TPE. So it's really how many individuals you hope to see, how many jobs you're posting, but it really would be great to start thinking about that now before you get on site to the event. All right, so that was our brief kind of overview for now as it relates to registration, starting to think about TPE. So now it's time for you all, any questions that you may have. And feel free to use the chat box, we will look there, or you can kind of jump on also and just ask your question. Any questions? Anything that you would like to share, Kirsten?
We do have a question.
Yeah.
From the chat. It says, I know in the past the interview hours have changed a bit. Do you know what the interview hours will be for this year?
Do you want me to take that one?
Yeah, and maybe the
Yes.
next one too, which is what specific information will they need to register tomorrow?
Yep. So for the interview hours, you're correct. They do change every year. And I know that that's not ideal for employers. So thank you for your patience. In part, we are, it depends often on the convention center's schedule. So probably more information than you need, but this year we are not able to get into the convention center quite as early as we have in the past because we are right on the tail end of South by Southwest, which I hear is fantastic. So maybe we'll still see some great benefits of that by the time we arrive. That being said, we also know in last year, we tried to have, the last 2 years we opened on Wednesday. 1 year we did half a day on Wednesday and 1 year we did a full day. And we actually noticed that Wednesday, the attendance didn't really change much between the half day and full day. And compared to Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, it was pretty low. So what we have decided to do this year is on Wednesday, it will really open at noon, but we're not going to do interviews on that Wednesday. There will be the option to do the receptions. So Wednesday will really focus on, for candidates, kind of boot camp and a lot of preparation for them in advance. And then for employers, the chance to move in and get situated. What we will do that afternoon, which will be the first year that we're doing this, and we're really excited about it, is we're going to do both a candidate welcome and an employer welcome. So there'll be actually a little bit more programmatic aspect. Then there's going to be kind of a career fair per se, where you'll have had the opportunity to already set up your interview tables. And then we're going to open the interview hall to candidates to basically walk around to be able to meet with employers. We know that many employers will have scheduled much of their interview times in advance. And if you're one of those employers, it might not be quite as advantageous to you, but we know a lot of employers meet candidates once they get there, and oftentimes they then don't have any room left in their schedule, or a candidate learns about a school they otherwise didn't know about and get really excited, and then they come to the interview table to schedule, but their interview is already full, or vice versa. So this allows the opportunity to actually have candidates and employers mix and mingle on that Wednesday to be able to meet, to then still have time to arrange interviews for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So really excited about that change, but that will be a change for this year. Our Thursday and Friday interviews then will stay the same, and we will actually start probably half an hour earlier. So with interviews starting at 8:30 in the morning and then ending, we haven't finalized the end time. In the past couple of years, we've ended at 8 o'clock at night, but we know receptions start at 7. That 7 to 8 o'clock hour seems to be pretty deserted, so we might end a little bit earlier so more people have the opportunity to do the receptions. But either way, it'll be at least 7 o'clock, if not later, on Thursday and Friday. And then Saturday, won't be a full day till 7 or 8 o'clock at night. We want people the opportunity to be able to fly out that evening still if need be, but it'll be longer than last year, where last year was only the morning. So we'll start again by 8:30 on Saturday, and we'll go until 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday. So I know that was kind of a long answer to the question, but we're excited about the changes. One of the things we looked a lot at, as Tim mentioned earlier, was the data, and actually looking at both candidates and employers who came and for how long on the first day and who came in for how long on the last day. We know that even though it's less expensive to stay in Austin compared to California, it's still a price point, and so we wanted to be able to maximize time in the city without extra nights of hotel as well. So we were really intentional about that schedule. So that's that question. And Tim kind of helped clarify that in the chat as well. So thank you. As for specific information for registering, really the main thing that you'll just need is an employer profile to already be created. And if not, it takes just a few minutes to create your employer profile to be able to log in and register. At that time, you'll have the option of selecting kind of your package. We went over sort of those price points before. You can always upgrade or add on to your package at a later time. So if you're not exactly sure how many tables you want, or if you want a premium post or a premium table, that's okay. You can come back and upgrade. So you can always just do the basic registration, which again is the one standard post and the one standard table, and that will automatically come with your registration. And if you know for sure you're somebody who always likes a premium booth, then you can go ahead and upgrade to the premium booth at this point. But like I said, if you're not sure, you can come back, and any time before that January 10th deadline, you'd still get the early bird registration rates. So hopefully it should be a pretty seamless process.
Thanks, Kirsten. Do we have any other questions, comments, thoughts as it relates to what you're thinking right now about TPE? Any suggestions or things you want to know from Tim or I? I can say that Tim and I both have attended TPE as employers and candidates within the past, well, for the past 5 or so years, if I'm correct, Tim. So we have some insights from also both sides, if you have any questions about that.
So Erin, here's a question we got from the initial registration.
Mm-hmm.
What should I bring with me for recruitment to TPE? What should I prepare in advance to make the experience as smooth as possible?
So what I can say from my experience, I've been at institutions who have primarily done first rounds prior to TPE and then second rounds at TPE. And so when coming, I made sure that I had all my questions printed and ready to go. We made files for each candidate, which made it go very smoothly. So just put on the table the stack of files for the candidates for that day. And then I've been at non-swag schools, but if you are a school that decides to bring swag, it's also making sure that you have your swag materials packaged ready to go. Depending on where you're coming from, what size swag item you want, whether it's we've seen large items such as, small bears and such, to just USB drive. So it's depending on what you want to bring and how you plan to give out those swag items. But those are big pieces, I think. And then I would say having a schedule specifically of when your interviewers are working your table. And so if you have a team of 1, figuring out, are you going to sit at the table every day? That also relates to your schedule. Or if you have a team of 5 to 7, who is doing what shift? That way your whole entire process, everyone knows when they should be at the table, where the questions are, who's going to grab the candidates. It's really good to plan each of those details before you get on site, which makes the on-site process even smoother. You're not needing to run to the employer workroom to try to print questions or anything. You already have everything you need right there. And if you have your own specific cards that are inviting candidates to either next rounds or to your reception, those are also good to have before you get on site.
Yeah, so for those of you who are on the chat today and you've never done TPE in general, just for you as an employer, for you to know, we do have a separate workspace just for our employers. And so as part of the experience, we want to make sure that employers have their own space so that way they can meet with their recruitment teams, or if you just need a breather from outside of the interview floor, like there is that space for you to be there. There's printing, there'll be Wi-Fi access and all of those things. So just like Arian was saying, like coming to the Employer Development Lounge, like either myself or Arian will be there, or one of our TPE interns will also be there. And so just to let you all know that, as far as what to bring, I have a checklist that I always keep in hand. And this is just something I've developed and used with our TPE teams, but it's just making sure, like, tablecloths. If you're going to bring a tablecloth, make sure they are dry cleaned and pressed, you know, things like that. And like Arian said with swag, like, if we're going to bring swag, how are we going to bring it? Especially if you're coming from a good distance and then you have to fly, does that mean that your institution will cover for extra baggage fees or anything like that? And so those are just things to prepare for. As far as what to prepare for in advance, the last institution I worked at, we went to a paperless recruitment process, and so that included our TPE experience, and so that was really cool to see that roll out, and it was really, really successful, and our staff really enjoyed it. For those that were on our onsite team and those that were not on our onsite team. And so that's a great way to prepare for that as well, if that's something that your institution are really looking at, being more sustainable. Yeah, just there's some things like even now, to start thinking about now, like if we are going, or if you're asking your staff about potential, like their growth and development for the next year, like even thinking about some of these pieces now, like if you know you're going to have one opening, so really thinking about like how do we structure our interview, if we have one opening plus anticipated, or are they all anticipated? So it's really making sure that you are starting to have some of these conversations now as an institution, so then that way when you get ready to make the registration push, you'll be able to know what your exact needs are, and then we can work with anyone to help like make the experience customizable, because I think that's what we want to make sure we do. Like, we customize our experience so much for our candidates, but we also want to do that for our employers. So whatever Arian, Kristen, or our TPE planning committee can do to help with that, please let us know, because we want to make sure that your team is as ready to go, and that if you need things on site, or even before on site, like that, we're here to help provide that need.
Thanks, Tim. So another question that we got from the registration was how to really fill those interview spaces that you have. A lot of that is going to come from the sooner that you post your job, the earlier that our candidates can see that information. But on top of that, Kirsten also put in the group chat some information about how important Wednesday is. While there aren't any interviews taking place on Wednesday, that is a good time to meet and greet your candidates as well as to get set up. We have a lot of candidates that we've also seen in our assessment who don't apply to any of the positions until they get on site, which our candidate development team is working with candidates on that. But we also have a lot of candidates who register at the last minute. So they may show up to TPE without any interviews scheduled, or haven't really seen any postings because they just made the last minute decision to come. And so that Wednesday time is great to really, especially during that meet and greet job fair, to capture some of those candidates who may have just got the funds to be able to attend TPE, may have actually really just learned about it. And some pieces that we're doing as employer development to ensure that we're helping the candidate development team reach out to a variety of candidates is that we're connecting with schools that aren't typically have attended TPE. So some of our historically Black institutions, some of our Jesuit and religious faith-based institutions, we're trying to reach a broader span of institutions, as well as reach candidates who may not be in higher ed programs, but work within higher education. Any other questions? Any other insights that you want to give, Tim?
You know, as someone who's been on the employer side of it for a little bit now in my career, I think one of the best things about the TPE experience is that whether it's your first time or your fifth time going to TPE, it's a great space to connect with others and find out like what they're doing in their processes to like what they're doing just to get some new ideas. I think that's the best part of the overall TPE experience, whether you're on site or not on site, like the ability to collaborate with other folks and really see what are some really cool things that another institution is doing that might work at your institution. And so I've been at other institutions before and with the TPE processes and like really integrated the best ideas from each of the processes I've been a part of and really made it into like this really cool experience for our institution at the time. So I think, especially if you are a potential first-time employer to TPE, like that's the best part about it that I found. And even from a candidate perspective, like that's also the great part. I've had some really great colleagues in the field who I still stay connected with because of just being in the waiting area of the TPE Onsite experience. So I think that's the best piece I can share with them. I will continue to share with everyone going forward. Do you all have any other questions? Thank you for giving us some of the shout outs in the chat box. Super appreciated. Are there any other questions? Because we can also go from another email question. A great question might be, and I just read it, and this could be something that potentially Kirsten might answer, or even Arian, or all three of us. But what have been some of the changes that have happened over the last 3 to 5 years? Because I know that was a definite question on our sheet there.
Sure, I can start. I think I referenced a couple of these earlier. I think the main change that happens every year, again, is just sort of the schedule. And some of that is intentional as we are trying to help determine what meets the needs of the candidates and the employers best. I think others are less at our control based on contractual space opportunities. So I think, you know, again, I know it's not always easy when the schedule changes every year. So thank you for your patience with that. Again, I think some of the other changes with the committee, I think we have tried to enhance our TP committee. And so this is a really strong committee. So that's really great. So I think even this webinar is one of the changes. So it might not be something that you see on site, but some of the preparation leading up is much more enhanced than where we were 3 to 5 years ago, as our committee is taking on more kind of opportunities to enhance the development of kind of employers and candidates and so forth. We are also starting, we piloted last year, we will do a opportunity for candidate coaching in advance. So we've done resume review in the past, but now we actually have kind of a mentor program. So for those of you that are involved in some of the NASPA mentor programs, the form will look pretty similar, but it's a candidate and employer coaching kind of matching. So candidates can have the opportunity to not only get their resume reviewed, but lots of other questions as well. You know, we realize that some candidates have great resumes, but maybe they're not as strong at interviewing, or they don't actually know where they want to move next or what functional area they might want to transition into after they've been in a certain area for a couple of years. So this allows more opportunity to build those connections across the field, which we're really excited about. You know, I think, you know, everybody thinks of TPE as the placement piece, and we don't, you know, placement is in the name, and we obviously have our big on-site event, but we like to think of it as a lot more than just placement, right? It's really about building connections between student affairs employers and student affairs job seekers. And how do we help enhance those connections, both on-site at the event through the interviews, but also leading up to the on-site event and year-round. And so you'll start noticing more and more of those on-site changes as well. Like I mentioned, actually spending that Wednesday having the opportunity to do more meet and greet opportunities. You know, we know there's a lot of recruiters that are also wanting to hear from other employers, right? What tips work for them? What openings might they even have coming in the near future? And because the interview schedule is always so busy, it doesn't always allow for that other additional professional development or that opportunity to connect. And so that's why we're really having that space on Wednesday where the interview hall is open, but without the interviews, so people can be walking around and networking. You know, it's not only a chance again to meet other candidates, but also to connect with other employers. And then I think you'll notice some other kind of programmatic changes that are still being developed for once the on-site event comes as well. And specifically for employers, I'll let Ariane and Tim kind of speak to that a little bit more. One of the other things I think is really important is we're really trying to be cognizant about price point. We know that the location of TPE tends to always be pretty expensive. And so the majority of the cost is hotel and flights. So we have not raised the candidate costs at all over the past few years, which we're really proud of. It actually came down $5 last year, and then we kept it the same. So we want to make sure that candidates can still try to find TPE as affordable as possible. Unfortunately, we can't control, you know, the hotels or airfares, but we can at least try to keep registration as minimal as possible. The employer registration is the same as last year as well. It might not seem as minimal as candidates, but we try to keep the costs down. It doesn't even cover the costs of the carpet and the tables and the pipe and the drape, but we wanted to allow as many employers to come. We know there's also tight budgets on campuses as well. So, you know, we think it's cost effective because of the opportunity to meet hundreds and hundreds of candidates in one location. So we have to have some sort of cost to cover the cost, but try to contain them as much as possible.
Thanks, Kirsten. I would say some of the biggest changes that are happening on the employer side is that we are seeing a lot more employers that are not just residence life. I think TPE has had that connotation of being a residence life placement exchange, but we are getting a lot more employers that are outside of residence life on college campuses, but are also very unique higher education roles that may be in the nonprofit area. So they may not specifically be at a college institution, but they work very closely with universities. So we're getting some very unique locations that are also coming in, or institutions that are coming into TPE. And what we're doing as a committee is, what we've been hearing and reading in the assessments from employers is more of a concierge type service for you all, so that you have some go-to individuals, which is why we're trying to make this committee more, you see our faces, so that you know that you can connect with us with whatever questions you need. As I said earlier, before, during, and after TPE. We also both work very closely when it comes to recruitment and development activities. And so you can ask us questions also as it relates to recruitment in other aspects, not just on site, but, you know, how to make intentional interview questions, how to start thinking about your onboarding processes. We're really trying to make sure that we're encompassing an entire recruitment cycle, so that you know that TPE is more than just the on-site event, and that we are here for you with more than just on-site events. So I think over the years, we have been seeing more and more of that coming with our employer side, is we can help you every step of the way, knowing that there are some employers who are given the task of recruit these individuals and may have never recruited before. And so we want to be sure that we are able to, as an entity, help you all have the best recruitment cycle, but also to find the best candidates for your positions. Anything for you to add, Tim?
Yeah, you know, as I shared before, of things that I would suggest to bring, we also have a blog. We also have a great blog that also talks about that, and we can definitely share at that web address of things for you all to consider. I think taking in Arian and Kirsten's points, the best thing about doing the TPE experience, whether you're on-site or not on-site, is that we take your feedback pretty seriously. I would say since 2010, when I was a candidate, I've only missed 2 TPEs since that time as a candidate and an employer. And so I think that's the great thing, is that, you know, even when I started as a candidate, there were things like, I wish there was a quiet space room to where I could just sit and like just be in a non-loud place. And so that has been added for our candidates and for our employer benefit as well. There's a meditation room. And so I think that's just one of the things about this experience, is that we really take seriously the feedback that you all give to us in an assessment, or like informally, because you might know us personally. And we really bring it to the committee and ask, like, what can we do with this piece of feedback, and how can we incorporate this experience into what we're trying to do. And to Kirsten's point, like, it really is dependent on the space that we're given. So we know, like, we're not miracle workers, so we can't make everything happen. But just know that, like, whatever suggestions you all give to us, even in this current planning process, like, we will take to the larger committee, to the committee at large, and just say, like, hey, here's something one of our employers gave to us to consider. How do we want to envision this, or can we envision this based on what we've been given? And I think that's something that I've really appreciated as someone who is now on the planning side, like how seriously we take the feedback and really the overall assessment to make the experience like the best for everyone. And again, to echo my colleagues, like, recruitment and selection just doesn't stop after March 28th. It is a year-round, it is an ongoing process. And so we really try to, you know, after the on-site and after the interview, the formal interviewing periods might be done, we really try to provide those resources in upcoming webinars and Zoom chats to really give you all the best sense of, like, what other institutions are doing. So please stay connected with us, because, like, we have a lot of things and a lot of great ideas that we want to bring forward, but we also want to make sure that we're taking into account what you all want to bring to the table as well.
Thanks, Tim. So does anyone else have any other questions, comments, concerns before we kind of close out? We will make sure that we send you this presentation, and of course, be on the lookout via social media and your emails for whenever our next live session will be, which will take place at some point in October. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Hope you all have a great day.